One of sort of the other things, right, that has come up recently, and here, again, I'll sort of turn to Ms. Beck, is that there has been a number of sort of threats and harassment brought against election workers. As a side note, I'm assuming if you are in this room, you are going to go vote at some point. Go vote. Please go vote. Just go vote. But also, thank your poll workers, who are really lovely people who are just out there volunteering because they decided that was a great way to spend their day. Right, so they need the thanks, but I wanted to say you had recently written an op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution where you were talking about some of the issues that you faced and those that are in your office, and I was wondering if you could maybe talk a bit about that and also perhaps what you're trying to do to, well, I guess to put it bluntly, assure your safety and that of the people that are working for your county.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is ridiculous that I am doing my silly little job in my silly little county and I am, being harassed for it. And what I faced in my position is nothing compared to some of the other counties. I will say in Floyd County in 2020, you can Google it, it was not me. There were some issues in Floyd County for sure. We've completely turned over a new staff, but it's really hard to get away from the distrust that occurred in 2020. There was a lot of misinformation also in 2020 throughout the state of Georgia. So even 4 years later, we're combating that. And I was not in Floyd County in 2020, and I'm facing the issues of that. It's hard for people to get over, and not enough people are taking an initiative to be well educated. We have so many checks and balances in place, and it's a lot about accountability. We're never doing things by ourselves, so it would have to be a really big organized coup if there was a coup, because there's a lot of us. But it's just trying to escape the misinformation, and I think even after 2024, we'll still be doing this in 2028, and I think more than likely we will lose a lot of good poll workers and a lot of good election officials just because, honestly, none of us make enough to do this. We keep Narcan in our office. I know a lot of counties do, because people were mailing fentanyl to election offices. Every single one of our precincts has to have an officer there. We have to do specialty training for, stop the bleed and CPR, because you just never know. I mean, threats get called in. Our poll workers, you have to think about who's available on a Tuesday all day. It's not the most fit people in the world. I mean, they're retired. They're retired. I mean, it's unfortunate that we ask people to do this 4 times a year, and I have to think in my workload of how all of my people are going to go home safe, and that's not something any of us signed up to do. We're not in law enforcement. We're just election officials, so it is definitely sad.
Thank you. I was going to say, do any of you who are working at this on the state level maybe want to talk about sort of provisions that have been put in place or things that are being done to try and aid on this?
So we've done 7 convenings around the state of bringing local elections officials together with their local law enforcement, so that the first time they're seeing each other isn't under an emergency situation. And for the second cycle in a row, we've supplied a tool for counties that opt in called Poll Worker First Response. It's a texting tool. And we thought about a panic button, but a panic button doesn't give you any context. It could be a guy yelling in the voting area. There could be a guy with a gun outside. So a texting tool, the poll manager has it, can text it, and it will go to the county elections office, the state elections office, and local law enforcement. And we will all be on the same page and have context as to what's happening. We have done several tabletops with, we did several tabletops with our federal and state and local partners, kind of going over different threats that could happen. And one of the things we haven't talked about quite as much is there are foreign threats and misinformation out there. A specific one, when we had to deal with this a lot, during the 2020 election, there was this great website called Enemies of the People. And the first person was Governor Whitmer of Michigan. There was like 40 people on there, and it had her picture with like a bullseye on it, a picture of her house, her address, her email address, and her phone number. Number 2 is Gabriel Sterling. I'm like, why in the hell am I number 2? But then Governor Kemp and Broward were further down, and the FBI took it down in a day or 2, and then got a call about a month later, and they said, hey, great news. I'm like, what? It's from the FBI. The FBI calls, you answer the phone. And they said, it was the Iranians. I'm like, why is that great news? And like, basically because it's a foreign actor, not a local person. I'm like, but a local crazy person can see all those things. these are the kind of threats we can't, the Narcan we got with the State Department of Public Health and distributed it at the Gabriel Conference, which is the Georgia Association of Voting Registrars and Elections Officials. Got it right. And we did training on that. There was training at Gabriel on de-escalation. There's a rather famous anecdote now. A election director in a county north of here had a Department of Homeland Security person come by and say, okay, you should park your cars along here because they had all glass. And they're like, why? Well, in case a bomb goes off, this will help protect you. Like Akyn said, they didn't sign up for this. But this is the reality that all of them deal with, regardless if it's a red county, a blue county, a swing county. This is what they're all dealing with. Death threats. How many emails do you get a day just complaining at you? Yeah. So they all deal with it. And it's not fair and it's not right. And hopefully we'll get through this process and maybe sanity will rule the day again.